Happy Friday, happy Friday. What's going on, beautiful people? This is Brian Martin checking in for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, kicking off my stint as host of our amazing MProcure program. MProcure is designed to give with focus on supplier diversity to make sure that individuals and entrepreneurs in the cannabis and hemp industry have the tools and support that they need, well, that we need, so that we can navigate these waters and be successful as we journey through cannabis and hemp and business and all things related to it. Want to give a shout out to all our Virgos. Happy September. We're in a new month. Shout out to Roz and the M4MM family. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Each month, we're going to talk about things that are impacting us as business owners and individuals in this industry. We're going to talk to thought leaders and lawmakers and legislators and people that have a real voice that can give us some insightful information and that will be beneficial to us as we move forward to this in this on this journey together, as a group. So again, I'm so happy to be here. I'm looking forward to your feedback and your thoughts and show topics for this first episode. Because I am the co-state director for in the amazing state of Nevada, I tapped into my resources, and my first guest, I can't say enough about this guy. He's founded several businesses. He is a financial wizard. He's my friend. He's my brother in all things. I go to him for everything as it relates to my business finances. And his name is Nick Steele. And I want to bring Nick up on screen and tell you a little bit about him. Nick, what's up, man?
How you doing, sir? How's everything?
Nick is the founder of Access Community Capital. It's the only community loan fund in Nevada. CDFI doing some amazing things. I remember when he came up with this concept and this idea, and now here we are. Focused primarily in North Las Vegas, doing some amazing things in non-traditional lending and providing diverse business owners with tools and lending support. So Nick, feel free to just jump in and tell us about, yourself, your background, and all the amazing things you and your team are doing.
Oh man! First of all, Brian, it's a pleasure to be here. Just to be on the same stage and have a conversation on screen. We talk
Right.
so much, and so it's nice to be able to talk about topics that we discuss in private, but to be able to have a larger audience. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Nick Steele. I'm the executive director of Access Community Capital. I'm an entrepreneur at heart and an investor in different businesses, and kind of going through the history of starting businesses and running businesses. The same challenges came up in every situation, and challenges that other business owners have and continue to have. And so I had a finance background, and I had this background of having started and operated businesses. And so I just wanted to combine the two to see if I can address some of the challenges that were out there and come up with some long lasting solutions that would help me out and others out that were in the same similar boat. And so 2 years ago, I had the opportunity of helping businesses at the beginning of the pandemic and really doing some free consulting work and just guiding them through the nuances of federal legislation and how to tap into the different programs that were out there, whether it was the EIDL program or PPP or some of the other programs that came about. And in one of those conversations, it just dawned on me that we could help guide people once, and that's temporary. They're going to need help at some later date. And what type of help are they going to need coming out of the pandemic that are still the challenges that were around before the pandemic? And so I had this idea to start a bank at first. But then I started thinking to myself, do I really want to be in the business of taking deposits and having a really big building and doing some of the things that to me, we're not going to solve the problem. And the problem for most of our businesses, and I focus on businesses because that's where I think workforce creation and job creation really happens, and also wealth creation. One of the big challenges is just access to capital. And so I wanted to start a loan fund that essentially addressed that core issue. And so we started Access Community Capital. It's founded by entrepreneurs and business owners. And it took about a year of formation to really build the structure of how we wanted it to be designed. It's essentially like a Quicken Loans for businesses. It's a streamlined platform that people can access to onboard and apply for loans, and our underwriting is extremely quick. And I want it to be real modern, have a real modern and streamlined process. But it's been great in the span of just the last 7 to 8 months. We've quadrupled our balance sheet. We started off lending in North Las Vegas. Now we're lending throughout the entire state of Nevada. And I think we're doing some great work. We're just helping business owners out that have no other options a lot of times. And they can't, either they're locked out of the traditional financial system, or they're unable to access capital like other businesses would be. And sometimes that's, for reasons that are undefined, or reasons that they may never know. And we're able to step in and really help them out. And when we help out with capital, we also help out with guidance and assistance on other areas too, so we can help grow their revenue as well.
Wow. That's amazing. And I have to say, you say 7 months, you're already in background. I know we spoke about some of the examples that you already have with you help people find that are struggling in business. Talk to us a little bit about how non-traditional lending, what that preparedness looks like. The, the lending criteria for many lenders, but there's still some ducks that we need to have in a row, and some things that we need to have in order, and even be prepared to be approved in
Yeah.
environment.
No, I think that's a great point, right? Because you can have all your ducks in a row, and there's still some things that certain demographics just aren't going to have in the same numbers. And when you look at women-owned businesses, or you look at global majority businesses, meaning Black and brown populations, in the United States, we've been structurally eliminated from accessing and accumulating wealth, right, over time. And so when you go to a bank, for example, and you want to start a business, and you're required to have a certain amount of collateral, well, other populations have been able to transfer their homes and to set up trusts and to do all these things that have accumulated wealth that can be used as collateral. For us, for the most part, and other populations, we haven't had that opportunity. Right. And so when collateral is one of the biggest requirements for securing a loan to start a business, or even a loan on a personal loan, not having that collateral is a huge impediment. And so what we do on our side, and some other alternative lenders do, is try to do away with the collateral aspect of things, because we know that's been a structurally one of the challenges for our community. And so we'll start to look at the other things, like maybe repayment rates, or your cash flow, your network, and so we look at some of those other factors that can still guide us and be important in terms of our decision-making process, but doesn't require some of the other avenues that may have been we've been locked out of. But to your point, and to answer your question, some things that people can always prepare for. I always say, before you go looking for funding, it's better to have your plan well designed, right? So having that business plan, that action plan, and it doesn't have to be, the one of those traditional business plans where you write a 40-page, paper, and you're talking about the global trends and things like that. That's not really important. What's really important is having that action plan. What are you going to do 30 days before you open? What are you going to do 30 days after you open? What are you going to do 60 days after you open? Where are you going to market? What's your where are your sales going to come from? How many employees are you going to hire? And then what's the cost to make that happen? I prefer that as opposed to some grand business plan that doesn't really tell you the step-by-step, A to Z things that you're going to do to actually make your business successful.
That is, thank you. That's so helpful. Your point. Those are, what I consider the element of, right? Those things that we can get outcomes, somewhat predict, where the success or failure or profit or not will kind of be looking. Here's the point that I want to revisit, and it's the lack of generation. Most of us are trying to develop that for those in our family that are behind us. And I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion fanatic, and that goes back to that whole equity. And that's what people often don't understand is equity means having the same set of same opportunity to compete, right?
Yeah.
And have the lack of generational wealth is something that is very real. So I commend you guys and think it's really nuanced and brilliant that you're looking at other ways and other mechanisms or pathways to success because they do exist
Yes.
in those businesses that don't come with that
Yeah.
support, financial support.
And when we don't have access to financing because of some of those reasons, what it really does is it shifts. The person still has the idea, right? Still has the desire to be successful, but now they have to entertain alternative means of financing, which are often either predatory or the interest rates make it more challenging to be successful. So it's almost like this chicken and the egg. If you can't access traditional financing that would help you survive, and now you have to pay 2, 3, 4, even more times those rates. Now it takes away and siphons the cash flow that would generally be put back in the business towards hiring employees and for marketing and things like that. And so that's a tax on your business because you're not able to access traditional capital.
You're absolutely right. And you're almost water.
Yep.
Share with us. You've got some great success stories. We're talking about starting a business, but you also work with established businesses and helping
Yeah.
provide some relief. Share with us, how some of the, support and some, even a success story that you've had so far with an established business.
Sure. I'll give you a couple. One of the areas that we really focus on are trying to get people away from these high price lenders, right? Sometimes some people need capital. You may be running a business and most of your revenue comes in the back half of the month, but you still have expenses in the front half of your month. And so if you're not able to tap into a line of credit or you're not able to have enough cash flow for those fluctuations or where revenue is not available yet, you may tap into what's called a merchant cash advance lenders. And these MCAs acronym is a easy way to tap into capital. You can get your loan in a day, 2 days, 3 days, but there's a price to that convenience.
A big one.
And one of the things with those type of lenders is that they're not considered uh, loans; they're considered advances, and so that designation has allowed them to escape the federal regulations that govern loans. And so the effect of that is that there's no interest rate cap. So when we come across businesses with these loans, you may borrow, say you borrow $100,000. Your payback may be 4 months or 6 months down the line, and you're paying back 160,000. So when you annualize it, these interest rates are sometimes and often high double digits, triple digits. We came across one business owner. They were paying 289% annualized interest on these type of loans. And what we were able to do, most lenders, when they see that type of loan, they run for the door, right? Because that person didn't have any other options, but they didn't have any other options because you didn't give them access to traditional financing. And so what we do is we can encourage people to actually come to us. We'll look at their ability to pay those loans. If you're able to pay 289%, you can pay our loans, which are between 5 and 8%. Yeah? And so
Wow.
there's a there's an immediate cash flow benefit to those businesses. And I'll just give you one example. Is that this happened in the past month. We had a business. They're doing really well. They're making a couple 100,000 of annual revenue, and they had no other options. They entered into a merchant cash advance. They took, I think it was 100,000. Their payback was 180. We happened to they happened to seek us out within 30 days of actually securing that advance. And what we were able to do was we were able to guide them through negotiating a discounted payoff. And then we refinanced it. We paid off that advance, gave them a 2-year loan at, I think it ended up being between 7 to 8%. And I think they ended up saving over $15,000 a month. A
That's
month.
that is a game. And
Exactly.
keep me honest here with no interest rate cap. doesn't that also mean because their advantage that's not reporting on your credit, is it? So if you are
Yes. You're exactly right. There's so many loopholes that have been, when you have certain industries and the industries are able to lobby, certain loopholes are created, and so this is certainly a loophole in the lending system, and one we just really need to address head on. And so what we try to do, and I encourage other small business lenders to do, is really seek out individuals that are looking for that convenience factor and provide us a real alternative to them. And I think we're doing that in the state of Nevada. We're really using our platform to challenge some of these predatory lenders, and we just need more of that across the country.
cannabis and lending in that space. Looking at it through a forward-thinking lens, we're optimistic. Won't have the stigmas and all of the limitations and restrictions that currently hold us back from finding and access to capital. How do you guys evaluate that? I know, and just to add a little bit more to that question, a number of people that are in the industry that are getting into it are also already entrepreneurs doing other things. And those other businesses could very well be the financial fuel that feeds their cannabis and hemp business. So it doesn't, I'm always encouraging people to not give up on your other entrepreneurial efforts, especially if that, this generational wealth building cannabis market. How do we go right where we uh,
Yeah, I think you highlighted a great question and a great point, is that in this burgeoning industry, there are some structural challenges to businesses actually being able to access financing, right? And really, a lot of that comes down to, it's not cannabis isn't legal on the federal level, and so your traditional institutions, are prohibited from lending in that space. And so some of the ancillary businesses are also affected as well, right? So, if you want to buy real estate, for example, and the tenant is involved in cannabis, you may not be able to get a mortgage, right, for that, if that intent is known. Distribution is another area, and so what we've seen is, in some states, I believe Illinois, Massachusetts, maybe certainly California as well. What they've been able to do is they actually have some good models that are out there. They've set up state-run equity funds, or not equity funds, state-run loan funds, have been established in those states that lend to businesses in those industries. And so, if you're in delivery or the retail, or real estate, you can access reasonable loans through those avenues, and that's a way of the state actually to creating a support system, so to speak, right? Because some states have already decided that they're going in this direction. We want to be supportive of the industry, and so another step further that a state can do is actually establish these loan funds, so that it makes it makes it easier for individuals to actually participate, be successful and sustainable. And that can be done in a number of ways, right? There's a lot of tax revenue that's created from the cannabis industry. Take a percentage of that tax revenue and then create a loan fund that could be managed solely for the support of that industry. Then you're creating the cycle of support in that industry, and it doesn't just siphon off revenue that goes to some other expenditure. And so I think that's one thing that that can be done on a widespread basis across the country. And so as we're looking at lobbying and petitioning for social equity programs across the country, let's think about those structural solutions as well. And this is one of those areas that can be super supportive even before the federal level comes in line.
I love it. I love it. I think that's so many. where we want to go. And I believe our second guest has joined us, which I am so excited, Nick, for this other amazing individual to join the conversation. We've got Senator Pat Spearman with us. Senator Spearman is United States Senator District 1 and co-majority whip, responsible for North Las Vegas and other areas of Nevada. This woman is a community leader, a woman of faith, a public servant. I see her in the community. She is really one of those politicians that is out and about and has her hands on so many things and is really focused on the betterment of us from a social justice equity perspective. So Senator Spearman, thank you for making it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I just have one correction.
Yes.
I don't know that I'll see United States Senator in this lifetime, but I hope it's okay that I'm a state senator.
Well, it is just as impactful to me. So all of us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Brian, I'm having a difficult time because your sound is going in and out. I don't know if that's everyone else's experience, but if I do this, that means I'm trying to hear you.
Okay, and I will speak kind of improvising, not at my normal location. So thank you for letting me know that.
Okay, not a problem.
Senator Spearman, please, in talking to you, you always give me nuggets of information and elements of your background and your perspective that I'm not expecting. But please share with us your experience to date. I know in 2017 introduced, State Bill 396 that provides provisions to the provisions related to industrial hemp. And you were so well versed on the hemp industry and giving a lot of feedback. So please give us your perspective and your background as it relates to your legislative work.
So thank you. So in 2017, well, we did medical marijuana. I think it was 2013. And then we did recreational. I want to say it might have been 15. And so one of the reasons that I supported that is because I am a veteran, and I've had several veterans who had come to me who were strung out on substances that were designed to help relieve the PTSD and all the things that were happening to them. And so it just seemed to me if we go a more natural way, that it would be a lot better on them. And anybody who knows me knows that if there's something that I can do that will better the life or the lives of veterans, I'm going to do it. And so that's why I championed the medical piece, because it just made sense. A lot of people don't know what especially combat veterans go through. And unless you've been there, you really don't know. Unless you've been in some kind of support role, you really don't know. So that's why I did that. The other thing that in 2017, as I started looking at it, I'm thinking, so a lot of people have already gone, over the edge for cannabis.
Yes.
A lot of people are trying to get in, and the entrance into that industry is so high that it's difficult for a lot of people to get in. Now, and I heard Nick talking a little bit about, equity and that sort of thing. Yeah, we can do some of that. But the thing that I want your listeners to think about is, what about hemp? And I'm almost hesitant to say that, because as soon as you start talking about it out loud, then people who get it and have money, they'll get it, and we'll have the same issues with trying to get into the hemp industry that we do with the cannabis industry. But hemp is one of those things that there are no prohibitions, if you will, at the federal level about what happens, because you get clothes that are made out of hemp, paper made out of hemp, hemp lotion, hemp oil, all of those sorts of things. So that's already there. So I just want to posit in this conversation, what about looking at some of the options and opportunities that are available in the hemp industry? One that I did not know about that someone shared with me is that, people pay a lot of money to get rid of termites. And carpenter ants and other critters that feed on the inside of your home. And so I had someone who was in that industry say that one of the things he said, as you're championing renewable energy and clean energy and talking to people about the R factor in their insulation, talk to them about introducing hemp into the insulation, because termites and carpenter ants can't stand the smell.
Wow.
And so you won't have them. when we start looking at some of the other things, the derivatives that hemp has, and we had to pass some legislation. I want to say it was 2019, because people were just printing labels and slapping hemp on it, and there was no hemp in it. So we passed some legislation in 19 that said you've got to prove that there's hemp in there and the amount that's in there. So what Senate Bill 396, what it did prior to that, you had to be a educational institution or some other type of research institution to grow and deal with hemp on any large scale. I thought that it was time for us to take those barriers down. And so 396 said you don't have to be an educational institution or research institution in order to grow hemp. I got a call from some folks in California. I want to say it might have been August, September of that year. And they asked me, said, why did you carry that bill? And I said, because I think this is an industry that more people should have access to. And the cost, the entry cost is a lot lower than it is for cannabis. Right?
Wow.
And so you had people who were buying land out there by the state line.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they were. I haven't been out there to look, but they said they were. And that's where they were going to have a hemp farm.
Wow. Wow.
So I mean, hemp is one of those things where I think if we stop and we take a look at it, this is an opportunity for us to get in on the ground level. And guess what? We can get in on the ground level and use some of the tools that Nick was talking about and create a very robust financial empire. Use that term. And we can use some of those monies to loan to people who want to get into the cannabis industry. And so what I'm talking about, let's go full circle. Let's see everything that can be offered from the whole plant, from the whole flower, and that which we can do and we can get into easy, and we don't have a lot of the federal restrictions. Let's do that, especially for farmers.
That's so impactful. And, as I mentioned to you when we were chatting previously, at M4MM, we are equally as focused on hemp and cannabis, and we have hemp farmers. And that, the more you talk about it, just opens my mind up, because when you think about opening up revenue channels and generating the capital, here's a lower entry point, legal, without all of the regulations, that, something that we just absolutely need to kind of keep on our radar when we're how this industry is going to unfold. Thank you for that. Senator, share with us, and I know you've got a particular interest in the North Las Vegas area, and I'm going to tell us why. But I'm interested in your vision and, how you see, as cannabis unfolds in Nevada, with the lounges and the different things that are happening, and specifically how that's going to impact North Las Vegas. And to the rest of our viewers in other states, I think this is going to be impactful, because Senator Spearman's words, are nuggets that he uses to engage your local lawmakers, and her wisdom, is so insightful, and there's opportunities to replicate things. Back to Nick, I know every time we're working on a project, he's like, Brian, don't recreate things, find something that's already successful. It's okay to show shameless in our. I think that's important that we share the information. So feel free to talk about your vision.
So, and I see someone has asked a question about supplier diversity. Absolutely. And especially when there are tax dollars involved. Absolutely. I think, and I'm trying to think, one of my colleagues had a bill in 21. Unfortunately, it didn't get out of committee, but had a bill that would require every level of government to have a supplier diversity policy.
Yes.
And without that, absent that, it's really left up to the discretion of the people who are sitting there at the dais making the decisions. I agree with that. I think that we should have a supplier diversity policy. One of the things that I hope to do, and this is not an ad for my run for mayor, but one of the things that I hope to do as mayor of North Las Vegas is take a look at those policies. And as innocuous as some of them may be, many of the policies, the structures themselves are embedded with racism that has been so long accepted, we can't even tell it. It's invisible. And so I'd like to look at all of the policies. What's supplier diversity? What are we talking about when we start talking about building things? What are we talking about when we talk about expanding small businesses and doing small business? What are we talking about? Because if we haven't included supplier diversity in there, everything that we're talking about makes us a hypocrite.
You're absolutely right.
It makes us hypocrite. So yes, supplier diversity. And I think that, excuse me, when we start talking about developing the hemp industry, we've got to have the same type of intentionality that we had with cannabis. We've got to have the infrastructure that keeps honest brokers honest and keeps those who are not honest out of it.
Yes.
So, and I think one of the things that is most exciting to me about working at the municipal level is that once we pass statutes at the state level, the implementation is at the local level, at either at county or in cities.
Yes.
And so guess what? One of the things that happens as at the local level for cities is zoning and ordinances. You think that has something to do with the industry of cannabis and hemp? Yeah, it sure does. Because that determines who can go where and how much of that can be there.
Yes.
And so I'm excited about that. What I think needs to happen at this point, I think we have to take whatever infrastructure is available with cannabis, look at that. I mean, do a forensic audit of all of those things. And wherever we see racism, we must stamp it out.
Yeah. Agreed. And
we must stamp it out.
And I would add to your point about supplier diversity. I believe that supplier diversity language needs to be integrated in every business model, every piece of legislation, policy, and I mean intentional language with actionable outcomes so that we have accountability and make sure that our diverse suppliers and business owners have an opportunity to have a seat at the table.
Yeah. So do me a favor.
Yes.
The mayor takes office on December 1st. Will you give me a call on December 2nd and let's talk about how we get it done?
Absolutely.
I'm serious about that. Okay.
Right now.
Yeah. Anybody who knows me knows that, once I take on a task, I don't sit around and go, but no. It's something that has to happen. And you know what, Brian and Nick, and to everyone who's listening, the monies that are coming into states and into local governments from the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act is huge. We're talking billions of dollars, okay? And I just said to someone today, one of the things that I don't hear people talking about is how are we going to hold people who are making the policies, making the recommendations for expenditures, how are we going to hold them accountable under ethics rules? And how are we going to hold them accountable under supply diversity? Right now, it's a concept most places. And what I hear all too often from people as well, we would have had more blacks involved in this, but we couldn't find any. We didn't. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't find any?
How hard did you look?
Yeah, how hard did you look? If you look in the mirror, no, you're not going to find them. Okay, but you have the Urban Chamber of Commerce, you have the Latin Chamber of Commerce, you have Women's Chamber of Commerce, you have Veterans Chamber of Commerce, you have all of these chambers of commerce out here, and you can't pick up the phone and figure it out. Then go to Google and say, Google, tell me where they are. Okay, and Siri, dial the number. Right. I mean, it's easy now. So we've got to make sure that all the money that's coming in, and that will only happen if voters hold us accountable.
Absolutely.
Let me say that again. That's only going to happen if voters hold us accountable. Yeah. People need to get involved with the money that's coming in, who is it being allocated to, who's making the decisions about the allocation, and make sure that there is no personal gain involved in whatever their vote is. Sorry. Does that make sense to you? In other words, if I'm not involved in the hemp industry at all. Okay, I have no claims to that. But if I were, and there's going to be a vote on expanding or putting the infrastructure in place for the hemp industry, I would abstain, and I would make it clear. I am a shareholder. I am a partner in whatever, and so for that reason, I am abstaining from this vote.
Wow. That's so true, so impactful, Senator Spearman. And we're so fortunate to have you in Nevada. how do people in other states who don't have a Senator Spearman, or have people who are on the other side of the aisle who aren't acting in our best interest? We know that we have to vote, but what does that accountability look like? How do they get the access to the information to make sure that these funds are being allocated appropriately?
Yeah. There a few years back, there was this whole argument about we need term limits. And I tell people we already have them. It's called elections, right? It's called elections. And when you pay attention, if you're involved with the civic action of your community, of your state, and even of the nation, and you hold people accountable, there is a huge difference when I'm sharing a committee meeting and someone's bringing a bill and there are positive implications for social justice. There is an energy shift, if you will, on the dais when a number of people show up, especially if they're showing up virtually and they've got their zip code, and the people on the dais know, oh, that's in my district, okay? Or when people show up and there's something that they're interested in and they write a letter or they send an email or whatever, but showing up after the election, making sure that people understand we voted you in, and we can vote you out.
Vote you out.
Okay. And if you're not doing things that serve our best interest, guess what will happen? We will mobilize, and our vote matters. And we will help you understand how much our vote matters. Okay. So that's one way. The other thing that I'd say is in about 8 years, there's going to be another census. And people kind of blow that off and think that it has no connection to their life. Well, some of the monies that come down in the infrastructure bill and the IRA, some of that money is based upon population. And so when the Senate, when it comes time again for the census, make sure your numbers count.
Yes.
Your household counts.
Yes.
Because as we start talking about we need daycare, that money will be allocated based upon the census of 2020. When we start talking about small business loans, that will be allocated based upon the census of 2020. You want to see change in government structure? A lot of that happens with the census, because it is with the census that you justify whether you have 4 congressional districts or 3.
And Senator King, honest here, weren't those new voting lines that redistricting, wasn't that a downstream impact of the last census?
It was because what it meant is that where the populations increased, then you have to take that into consideration, and where they decreased, you had to take that into consideration. And I can't remember which one it is, but there was a state that lost a congressional district. Absolutely. And a state that picked it up. Okay, now let's bring it home. How about Nevada? If we have 20% of the people in Nevada who do not participate in the census, and then our numbers go down by 20%, and you look at where the population growths are, where it has happened and where it has decreased, if the population has decreased in the areas where there are BIPOC demographics, Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, if that has decreased, guess what happens to our representation?
That's already limited.
Yes. Wow. Yes.
That's interesting.
And can I say one more thing? And I'm not trying to monopolize, but let me say one more thing.
Right.
It is important for people, if you don't have one of me, feel free to write me, text me, something, call me, and I'm willing to share. Nick knows I'm willing to share, and a lot of the time that I'm on the road is going to other states to talk to their legislators about how to do what I do. Okay. And the one thing that I always say to them, you have to be fearless. And if you have fear, do it anyway. Okay. But everyone must understand that it's every election, every office, every time.
Every time.
Every time. Here's an example, and I'll shut up, I think. Here's an example. In 1982, John Danforth was a state senator from Missouri. And he was a Republican, and he was being challenged by a Democrat who happened to be a woman, Harriet Woods. And she came out of nowhere. And 3 weeks before the election, most of the political pundits were saying she was going to win. It was going to be an upset. Okay. The last 2 weeks of the election cycle, Danforth had $1 and they put it into TV ads. Harriet Woods ran out of money, so she couldn't answer the TV ads. So Danforth won in 1982. 1982 was also a midterm election. And when he went back to the Senate, he had a friend that he pulled into his office as a legislative assistant. His friend's first name was Clarence.
Oh.
Somebody already knows where I'm going with this.
Oh.
Okay. And when a vacancy appeared at EEOC, Clarence was recommended to become the deputy. And from the deputy position, he became the director. And then when the unfortunate death of Thurgood Marshall happened, he was tapped to become the next Supreme Court justice. Now let's back up. Let's back up, okay? Let's back up. If Harriet Woods had been elected in 1982, Clarence Thomas would not have been in DC in 86 and 92.
Wow. You just gave us a word about voter engagement, allyship, activism, and the downstream impacts of not taking action.
Exactly.
Wow. Hey, Nick, I want to bring you back in. Senator gave me I can't stop thinking about him, business. So, say, for instance, I put together this tight business plan. You know, is that something that's within bounds? Is that something to consider? How does it work from a
Yeah, I think the senator hit right on it. You know, if she wasn't spending so much time in the legislature and teaching people across the country, she'd be the number one entrepreneur in the state. You know, but I think you're exactly right. I mean, there's no federal prohibition on hemp, and as such, lending can happen in that part of the industry, and so that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's probably some things to consider in terms of what area of the hemp industry you want to be involved in. Are there processing? Kind of what the structural impediments are to actually processing hemp, but there's certainly capital that's available to make that happen. And right now there aren't a lot of players in that industry, right? So from a first mover advantage standpoint, makes sense.
Yeah, and also when you think about those and flower and the advancement of that industry, there are downstream businesses that it takes to support that. Those very same businesses, and probably more when you think about the vast uses that we're learning about hemp, are also going to be there. So you don't necessarily have to think about handling hemp. How do you support that industry? When, the senator mentioned, it being an insulation, what does that packaging look like? What does that supply chain look like? So as we learn more about hemp and cannabis, I'm always telling my clients, always look at what business needs that industry is going to depend on to be successful. And that's really, in my mind, a good entry point or a good way of strategically thinking to place your business for a service that is absolutely going to be needed.
Yeah. No,
Well, Nick and Senator Spearman, I would love for you both, as we close out and let everybody kick off their Labor Day weekend, any words of encouragement or thoughts for those entering the cannabis industry, not just in Nevada, but just nationally, based on, both of your combined experiences?
I mean, I'll go first because I'm sure Senator Spearman is going to have something more insightful than I will to close us out. I would just say there are a lot of activists and a lot of people thinking about different ways to be involved across the country, right? And so in thinking about kind of where you want to position yourself, do that research, see what's happening in other places, what's working well, and see if you can replicate that or bring those best practices to your area. A lot of times as an entrepreneur, just in general, whether it's in the cannabis space, the hemp space, or just in another business industry, you can start your product and create it and hope to sell it, or you can bring something that's already working from somewhere else to where you are. And I think I would encourage people to take that as a thought exercise, and that can give you a lot of success with less risk.
Love it. Thank you. For your words, I want to talk about. I know you. I want to acknowledge it. your service, and I apologize.
It's okay.
Please give us your future.
So I agree with what Nick said, and I would just add to that. The future of both of these products hinges on who's in office at every level. They can do things we've not gotten, cannabis off of that Schedule 1 thing federally, but there's states that are doing some things, and I think pretty soon that will happen. But at the state level, there's only so much that we can do in terms of passing laws. Once they leave the state, it is up to the other localities to implement them. Someone had a question in here about tax money coming back to Black and brown communities. Depending upon how your the tax structure, the revenue structure is in your state, in most states, there's a general budget and there are general categories. And with those general categories, the money comes from those general categories and goes to counties and cities. All right. And it is in their hands as to how the money then is redistributed. Okay. Every election, every office, every time. So I'd say vote. The next thing that I would say is take a look at hemp and all the things that it can be used for. Hemp is even part of the beauty culture, beauty supply culture. Okay, so what are some of the things that are available, readily available, that maybe you or can happen in your community? And let's start. Why don't we start a network, a supply chain network for hemp products? How about that? Maybe supply diversity is not about somebody giving us the opportunity. Maybe it's more about us creating the opportunity.
I'm here.
Whatever the opportunity is, and if it's cannabis and we're talking about processing, everything in that supply chain, there's got to be a place that we can land. We're talking about hemp, everything in that supply chain, there's got to be a place that we can land. If we're talking about hemp as a part of insulation, then we need to be in the building industry.
Right.
Specifically in the residential building industry. Okay. Whatever that is, let's look around and, listen, because for Black folks, our history, we've never really waited for folk to create the opportunity. We have created the opportunities and said to people, you need to probably take a look at this. Mm-hmm. Okay. George Washington Carver. I mean, come on. All right. So yeah, we create the opportunities that exist in our communities. We set up the structures and we elect the people who will enforce those structures with the types of statutes that help us live and help us to not just survive, but help us to thrive. We can do that.
We can do that. And I believe we will, Senator. I cannot thank you both enough for joining me on this first webinar. I want to thank each and every one of you out there who joined in. Please share. Please join us next month for the first Friday. We will continue conversations like this with more amazing guests like Senator Spearman and Nick. Both are welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
M4MM is doing some amazing things across the country, not just here in Nevada. So I want to wish you all an amazing Labor Day weekend. Be safe. Enjoy whatever you enjoy responsibly, and we will check in next time. Peace.
Thank you. Peace.